And I'm going to look at some tips to help practice managers or finance managers deal with the end of year accounts process. This is quite timely because a large majority of our clients do have March year ends. And if you don't have a March year end, obviously this could be set aside and looked at later on in the year when it does come to your individual practice accounts year end. So what do we want to achieve by looking at the accounts year-end process and trying to basically improve the efficiency of that? Well, we're trying to help clients to improve the accuracy of their records. That will obviously not only help us when we prepare the annual accounts, but it will also help practices when they're doing any internal reporting. There's not much point in doing internal reporting if the information in your systems is inaccurate. Hopefully it will help us to reduce any queries at the year end, so we won't be back pestering you, asking lots of questions. And ultimately the aim is that if the practice records are of a really good standard and there are lots of notes and things on there, it will help improve the speed at which we can produce the accounts at the end of the year. And all of our practices will normally want their accounts really quickly at the year end, so this would be helpful from both sides really. So the first item I would suggest practice and finance managers look at is your actual general ledger. Now, if you're on one of the softwares such as QuickBooks or Xero or Sage, you can run a general ledger or a nominal ledger report from that. If practices are using Iris, there isn't a general ledger as such, but there are some useful cash book and analysis reports that you can run, and a really good NHS income report that you can run to look across month by month to review your income and expenses. So I would suggest you run your general ledger before you send the accounts in to us, and perhaps also do this at a couple of times through the year, maybe quarterly or 6 monthly, just to make sure that everything's been put in the right place, that you're using the same nominal codes for the same type of things. Hopefully it will help you to pick up any items that have been posted to an incorrect place. And it will also be helpful to you as you go along to check the number of transactions. So this is an area that we will check when we prepare the year-end accounts, but if you do it when you're going along, if there is something missing, you can pick it up and deal with it at an earlier stage. So for example, we might expect there to be 4 lots of income for minor surgery. We might expect there to be in this year 6 lots of income for extended hours, 6 lots for extended access, etc. Just have a look through and say, actually, why didn't we get a PA drug reimbursement in November? Was that because we forgot to claim, or was it because it's been posted somewhere else, or did we actually merge it with the following month? Just make sure that things look sensible. And also just make sure that items have been allocated to the correct partners on the general ledger. So we would normally expect there to be 12 monthly drawings, 12 employee and employer superannuation contributions, plus an annual adjustment. Make sure any additional drawings have been allocated to the correct partner. So this may be, for example, if they've been paid for training income or for doing extra sessions. Just make sure things have gone to the right place, because if we have a payment for a partner, for example, that's gone to the wrong partner, when we produce the accounts, we will allocate that partner with any extra prior share profits. Following on from the general ledger, if you are using one of the softwares that allow you to produce a profit and loss report, particularly QuickBooks, you might want to look at doing a month-by-month report. So this will give you an overview of whatever period you choose, and it will show you each basically in individual columns per month what income and expenditure there is per nominal code. That can be really helpful to look across that and just check to pick up missing or incorrect postings, and it will enable you to make any adjustments to your accounts records before sending them in to us. It's also helpful if practices can ensure that they analyse fully their contract income and enhanced services, whether that's from NHS England or from the CCG or from the local authority. If you receive a remittance, for example, from the local authority and you just post that as local authority income, Unless you give us the paperwork, we will undoubtedly raise a query at the year end and say, can you please split this for us between smoking, health checks, contraception, etc. So to help us and also to help you to keep track of things, it's really helpful if you can make sure all those sorts of income are split out. And if you're not sure how to do that, please just ask. So just contact your normal person at Lentils and we can help guide you through if you're not sure actually how to achieve that. One thing that's vital to making sure that your accounts records are accurate is doing a regular bank reconciliation. So we would normally recommend that you do this monthly, if possible, and use the bank feed facility if you do have a bank feed on your account software, because that will undoubtedly help improve the accuracy and make it easier for you. As a minimum, though, you should be reconciling the bank at the year-end date. If your bank statement runs a few days after the year end, please draw a line across your bank statement at your month end and reconcile to that point. So for example, if your bank statement runs to the 4th of April and your year end is March, please reconcile to the 31st of March and not to the 4th of April. Otherwise, the report you provide us will be dated 4th of April and it won't actually give us the information we need for the year end. Once you've reconciled your bank, you'll probably be feeling really pleased with yourself and think, well, that's done. I don't need to do that again for another month. But it is helpful if you can actually look at the bank reconciliation report and look at those items that are shown as outstanding. Have a sense check of those items and look at them to see actually, are they outstanding? Or are they items that you've entered twice, for example, or are they payments that you provided for and have cancelled, etc. And if they're not actually genuine outstanding items, which means payments or deposits which just haven't cleared the bank yet, then you need to think about, should you actually be deleting them off your account software? One of the things that we will look at when we prepare the accounts is your drugs profit margin. So this is to make sure that that practices are being reimbursed in full for any of their PA items, or for the dispensary, making sure that actually the profit they're making on their drugs is in line with what we would expect. Now, to do this accurately, we need all practices to split their drug cost between reimbursable and non-reimbursable items. So the reimbursable items we would normally put in the accounts are under the category of drugs and dressings, and the non-reimbursable items we normally call something like surgery sundries or clinical consumables. So that we can work out what the profit is, we need those items to be split out. We also need practices to do a year-end stock take. If you're not a dispensing practice, that can be just simply the nurse going around and totting things up, see what you've got in the fridge and the cupboards, etc. If you're a dispensing practice, we normally recommend getting one of the external stock takers to come in and do an accurate count. And we also need practices to provide us with details of any suppliers they haven't paid at the year end as well, and any outstanding rebates. All of those things combined will help us to identify what sort of profit you're making on your drugs, and then we can flag it up to practices if we think there's a problem. For example, if we notice actually the drugs profit has reduced significantly, we can then investigate further, and it may be that actually practices haven't claimed their flu vaccine or something along those lines, or there are outstanding credits for vaccines that haven't been returned. Sundry and suspense items on your nominal, please do try and keep these to a minimum. There will always be some items that you have to post there, but do try and split them out if possible. And where you do need to put items to those categories, please try and include explanations or little memos to give us a clue of what's actually going on with those items. I know sometimes, particularly with the PCSE statements, they don't tie into what you've received, or then you may have received a payment and you're not sure who it's from or what it's for, and you might just put on the nominal unknown. Well, as part of your year-end checks, if you could go through and perhaps update those things for any information you've had since, that would be really helpful. In terms of staff salaries, we normally ask our clients to provide us with their wages reports for the year, and then we do some analysis on those reports. We'll do some wages control accounts to make sure things are coming out as we expect. But within our accounts, we normally do allocate staff between different categories. So it's really helpful when practices provide us with their accounts records at the year end, if they can let us know which staff belong to which category. If you look on your previous accounts, you will see how we split the staff out, because it does vary between practices. But on this slide, I've got some examples of areas where we would show staff separately. So we would always split out dispensing staff. We may show ANP separately. We will always want to show salaried GPs and retainers separately. So if you do want staff shown in a particular category, then please let us know. But also we notice on some practices payroll reports, they do have them staff split between different categories, which is helpful, but only if you keep those categories up to date. And we know that staff sometimes move between categories. So if you do have categories within your payroll departments on your payroll reports, please make sure that they are updated. Turning now to look at the balance sheet items that we may need some help with. Fixed assets, so if you have bought any significant items of equipment during the year, if you could post those to a separate account for fixed assets additions or equipment additions, rather than leaving those items within the drugs or stationery or equipment codes, that would be helpful. The sorts of things that we would normally post to fixed assets are the larger items that are likely to be used by the practice longer term. So this might be things like examination couches, ECG machines, those sorts of things. The disposable items and the tiny bits of equipment that are kind of more consumable items, they can be left within the surgery sundries or clinical consumables. We don't necessarily want to be splitting those out. And with the fixed assets, if you have received any reimbursements or donations to help fund those, it is useful if you could have a little note either on the account software or with a covering letter or email to us to let us know which reimbursements or donations have been used for which items of equipment. Turning now to debtors. This is the detail of items, income that the practice has earned at the end of the year, but it hasn't actually received the money for. If practices can give us a list of those at the year end, it's really helpful. We will look at your after-date accounts records and after-date PCSE statements, which will pick up some of those, but there will always be things that we can't find out about unless you tell us. If the practice uses the sales ledger on their accounts software, please do run an aged debtors report and look at those sales ledger balances at the year end and make sure that they actually tie in with amounts that are genuinely owed to the practice. We often find sales ledger balances include duplicated items or amounts that were included as invoices which are never going to be paid. So please do review those and check them before sending the accounts to us. If you do use the sales ledger, when you provide us with the list of debtors, we don't actually need you to include any that you've already posted to the sales ledger because they will already be within the accounts software. And the other side of this then is the creditor. So this is amounts that the practice owes at the end of the year, which it has not actually paid yet. So this will be things like your drug suppliers, light and heat costs, telephone supplies, those sorts of things. If the practice is VAT registered, which would normally apply to dispensing practices, please do provide us the figures net of VAT, as that is how the figures are shown within your accounts. And in a similar way to the sales ledger, please review your purchase ledger balances if you use the purchase ledger on your account software, and just make sure that there aren't any duplicates or negative items or odd amounts within there that aren't actually due by the practice. We do have a client portal that lots of our clients use to share information electronically with us, but for clients that want to send us hard copy records, we're still happy to receive those and we will arrange a courier to collect them. If you do want to add information to our client portal, we have this year set up a new folder called Clients Records. And that would be the best folder to use to upload any information. So the accounts folder that we previously used for this, we can then retain that and just have things like signed accounts and our commentary reports in there. And hopefully by using the client's record folder, it will then make those accounts and reports, etc., more easy to find. We do ask clients to provide us with purchase invoices. If you're providing us information electronically, you may not want to do that. But what would be helpful is if you can attach invoices to your software, if you can do that for significant items, that would be really helpful. And then we don't necessarily actually need to see a hard copy invoice. We can just click into the software and it should take us automatically across to the invoice. Please do feel free to email your normal contact at Lentors or provide a covering letter. If there are any other bits of information that you think we would need to know when we're producing the accounts. The sorts of things we might need to know are if there are any changes in the profit shares that you haven't already informed us about. If there are any prior shares of income, so for example, if you know that a partner's worked additional sessions but they haven't drawn the money. Drawings calculations are always helpful if you do separate drawings calculations yourselves. If you are able to get the PCN accounts, if we don't already produce them, that would be helpful, but we appreciate that actually they may not be available when we get to the practice year end. And just any other information that you think we may need to know about, please do put it with your accounts records, email your contact, or upload it to our client portal, DocSafe. Well, hopefully this will help you when you're going through your year-end records process. But if you do have any questions about what's needed regarding that, please do check the year-end schedule that we send across to you, or speak to your usual contact at Lentors, and we will let you know and clarify anything about any information that we do actually need at the year-end.